So, just wanted to go over really quickly, like in terms of the live experience of Fear Factory. I mean, when they did, you mentioned earlier, I know that up until like 1999, there's some really amazing like gigs and stuff with Burton really like killing it.
Yeah.
He's hitting all the notes. He's got an amazing stage presence. The guys are going insane. Like Wolbers is smashing it on the bass. They're all consummately professional musicians. Unfortunately, Burton, he becomes the kind of the weak link in the band's live setup at this after Digimorsal. There's, I don't know, he busts his vocal cords or something, or he's using bad technique for a long time on tour, or he just is not caring as much about giving a good performance live, because I'm sure he's aware that he's not like hitting a lot of these like melodic notes particularly well in a live context, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a struggle, obviously. Like, it's just, I would say, like, 2001, he had some good performances, obviously. Like, by the time you get to, like, the mid-2000s, it's done. Like, it's not, it's a fall from grace.
But, I mean, that's probably due to, in my opinion, like, it's a combination of probably bad technique or technique which is kind of not... No, like someone like Randy Blythe from Lamb of God, for example, he had to have certain vocal training in order to sustain his vocal abilities on tour, because that really is just incredibly wearing on your voice, doing that every other day or every day for a month. It will give you real nodules on your vocal cords or whatever kind of thing, and when you're young, I know that it's a lot easier to sustain high notes as well.
Go out there, yeah.
Particularly to do melodic high stuff, and you've got to really kind of like, you see like these hair metal bands, they often have to tune the songs down nowadays because can't quite hit.
Well, look at Mikhail Erkenfeld, like he can't do it anymore.
Oh my! But I mean, Erkenfeld was never really a vocal auteur, particularly with his clean singing, but.
Well, no, I mean, like
he can't do the growls.
He
can't do the growls particularly either. But I mean, it's not that. Again, it's kind of an occupational hazard of being in a metal band.
Because he used to have a monster voice, but now it's like, there was that one set he did in, I want to say 2019 for Vakken, where they like actually played the old songs, the metal songs.
And he wasn't.
Like they played that for.
Up
Yeah,
it
was terrible. He couldn't do it.
But he's probably just. I mean, if you don't use that part of your voice, you lose it. You use it or you lose it, really. So I mean, in terms
like James LeBrie, look at that.
Oh yeah, man, no. Yeah. But that to me again kind of smacks of a guy who's just kind of checked out mentally, and he's not particularly interested in giving his best performance. Not to say it's easy or anything, but it's just kind of like you grow fat on success, and you just kind of phone it in sometimes.
I hate this controversial take, but I think like the last 3 or so, I mean, I haven't listened to the last few Dream Theater albums. I think like they're just checking out, in my opinion. You know what I mean? How much can you do? Yeah,
well, I think they probably were peaking on Metropolis Part 2, honestly, Dream Theater. But I mean, they're not a band I super listen to. But let's just talk quickly about Digimorsal and like the kind of the new metalization of Fear Factory. Because I mean, this album, Obsolete, it was received really well. It was considered to be, I think it was their best-selling album.
Yeah.
Of all time, right? This actually.
I thought Demanufacture was, but it.
No, I think Obsolete managed to surpass even Demanufacture over time.
Oh man.
But then obviously in 2001 you have Digimorsal, and that's where they decided to go with a more of a streamlined or stripped back idea. But the songs on Digimorsal, they're really, really good. We're not going to go through each one, but there's they're so catchy, those songs, and that to me is like Dino hitting his stride in a way where it feels very effortless, where he's like just putting out almost pop songs,
Yeah. Well, Lynchpin becomes this huge hit. That, like that really, that's what made them. That's what took off. Like that was everywhere in MTV.
And that is a quintessential, it's a quintessential Fear Factory song. It's got an incredibly catchy chorus.
Yeah.
It's got heavy parts. It's got drum,
light parts,
acrobatics.
Singing. We'll see the end.
But do you think? I mean,
we will never treat on end. Yeah,
it's great. It's a great hook in
that line. Like, no, but the line really hit me when I was like younger. Even now, like all my life I felt discarded, never feeling a part of it. No, you. Like, I think that's like really the like by the time they wrote Digimortal, that was when the first crop of millennials came about. And so I think like millennial FOMO is like a huge, feeling of missing out. I think like that really is like the anthem of like the millennial metalhead, like that still has the
Did you think
feeling of missing out.
do you think that Burton went for more? I think he kind of tried to cater to. He's more self-aware of the audience on Digimortal in terms of the lyrics. Like he was writing songs where he was more like, "Oh, these are," because Digimortal does kind of like frame itself as another concept album, but that to me is like very loose. It's not like it's kind of. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's theme. Maybe it's thematically
a part of the trio, but like it's still. Yeah. It's not like, I mean, some people say that Edge Crusher is still here, but it's not. It's
I think
What Will Become is a good song.
The first half of Digimortal to me is like a flawless run again.
Yeah, no one is a great song.
Yeah, and I think Dark Bodies is one of my favorite Fear Factory songs in general. It's just so catchy. And
it's funny because like the latter half of the album I don't even remember actually.
Well, the latter half of the album stinks in some ways. I like the back up is really annoying because it's got the stupid rapping and stuff on it.
That one.
That was part of the reason why people said that they were like selling out to just Limp Bizkit kind of.
From the Wasteland, Cold Steel Under My Waistband, Hazardous Times, Enemy Lines, Drawn in the Middle of the Streets, The Concrete Stained with Blood, I Still Got to Eat. Like, it's stupid. Yeah,
it's dumb.
When I hit the street, I made the man understand. I feel the flesh and I blood like a man. It's basically like trying to be like Limp Bizkit.
So look, it says here that there's on the Wikipedia, right? There's one line for the concept of Digimortal versus like a whole Bible length, for the Wikipedia of Obsolete. And then the band says that the band initially wanted to take a detour from the concept records. Digimortal would continue where Obsolete left off. Conceptually, the record contains a futuristic story about a man and machine merging into one. The surviving humans and the machines realize they depend on each other if they're going to continue on. The title of the album
is... What a piss off!
Yeah, I mean, that's
what
just...
What a piss off!
This is almost like the Matrix Reloaded of...
Nick Land BTFO. Nick Land BTFO.
Yeah, it's kind of like we had to tie up all the loose ends. Yeah, we had to tie up all the loose ends in a kind of lazy way.
But it's not even like Landian cosmic horror. It's like just the machines and the humans decide to get along. It's like what?
But I never got the thing is, man. Like I think that was entirely pasted on it later on. I think that Burton wrote these songs. I think he wrote these songs like I'm going to write songs about my feelings, man. And then he did, and then they later on made a pretext for it being another part of the trilogy, blah blah. But the songs to me, they're just more about like feelings, and that's fine. Yeah. You're allowed to write songs about feelings. It's great.
Yeah, but it's just I don't know. A lot of them are not very well done. Like
I don't remember the last half of the album because the last half of the album.
I remember Acres of Skin. I remember Acres of Skin being all right. Walk through the ashes of man, skin like fields of fire. Pain is the only weakness. Death is just an escape. We are connected like tissue. Feed on the shame you've raised. Why continue to the harvest? We are already dead. No one can reap these acres we've sown. There's no morning sun, no falling rain, no for acres of skin. So again, this is like techno cyborg world. Invisible Wounds is another one that like people credit as like one of their best songs.
It's a great song, man.
Bodies,
it's so catchy and like just a clean bit and the vocal melody is like perfection to me. But again, it's a very streamlined song. It doesn't outstay 4 minutes in length. And this is why I compare this album to Magma by Gojira. This is like the album where they took the formula.
In dreams, I see myself flying, close to the sun, and I am climbing. It's a super catchy melody, man. It's just like gets in your head. But then, it's like Magma. I kind of like retroactively don't like Gojira anymore because the normies like them. So.
Well, that's a shame, man, because I still think they kick ass.
I just have to listen to them more. I've only listened to like 1 or 2 albums a lot. Like it's just.
Well, I mean, in terms of doing a run, like if you want to listen to Gojira, like I mean, it's Master Sirius, and then The Way of All Flesh, and then Enfant Sauvage is probably the best run that Gojira had in terms of an album. But then I think that for me personally, Magma is
Enfant Sauvage is probably their best.
Enfant Sauvage was almost like where they perfected. That's almost like their version of Obsolete, I think, in some ways, where it's kind of like it's like a streamlined, but it's not selling out. It's not like
Yeah.
and then now they're kind of retreading a bunch of stuff, which is kind of boring. Like the new one is just kind of retreading everything again, and the production's
Yeah.
kind of worse. And
That's what I mean. Like, I think they're just resting on their laurels now that the army's like.
yeah. Well,
like
they're the Metallica. They're the Metallica of extreme metal nowadays. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
obviously,
It used to be Meshuggah was like the Metallica of extreme metal.
well, Meshuggah's too inaccessible for most people. Just go over really fast. Like, so after Digimorsal, there was the breakup and the beef then happened. So there was
then Old Warburst takes over.
Dino left. Dino was expelled from his own child, which I mean,
yeah.
And then
he goes on to make Fear Factory Light,
which was Divine Heresy, right?
Yeah, Divine Heresy.
Divine
with
Heresy,
the one singer that was pretty annoying.
Yeah, never listened to Divine Heresy myself, but like obviously without Dino, you've got a Wolbers fronted Fear Factory, and obviously they made Archetype. They made Archetype, which has some cool things on it. Honestly, I think it's cool, but again, the riffs lack the Mexican tamale. They lack the spice. You know,
they don't have the dynamic harmony. It's just a chug fest. Like,
yeah,
I mean, I do like Archetype as an album. Like, Default Judgment's a good friend.
Yeah.
Fuck. Default Judgment's a good track.
Yeah.
I was gonna say Default Judgment's a good friend.
Default friend
Judgment.
Yeah.
Default Friend Judgment.
Yeah. No, that's a good song. That is a good song.
But yeah, I mean, Old Wolbers, he's interesting because like some of his other projects are pretty good. Like some of the songs I've listened to.
And then there's some people who obviously find that Archetype they like it more than some of the other albums, and and then after that they did Transgression, which was the disaster.
I've never listened to Transgression.
It was apparently the big disaster. Well, that was the one where they got rid of Reese Fulber as well, and unfortunately the production started to sound very generic and kind of muddy. Didn't sound like it sounded way too natural, which is kind of a nowadays you say, well, natural production is a good thing, but back then, for a Fear Factory album, you didn't want it to sound natural, like the drums were recorded in someone's garage, and it's just the songs are just boring. They phone it in. Burton, the melodies were not good. I think that there was beef about who wrote the melodies and why they sucked and stuff. And Wolbers, he basically was like totally unsatisfied with the production and the way that it went. You know, I think the band was kind of coasting off its own inertia when Dino left. And they thought, well, we're so used to doing this stuff, we're a unit, and here it's not going to be that different. And then they were kind of like making jabs at Dino, saying, "Oh, we improved the band. The soul of the machine has improved. We removed you from the band." But Dino was, with his ruthless kind of businessman sense, he was the soul of Fear Factory. Really, I think he genuinely was the soul.
No, I was gonna say, like, during this time they were only on a few like really big touring packages in like around 2005, 2006, like Big Day Out in Australia, but they don't have that anymore. I don't know why. That's because Big Day Out, like, you gotta realize it's pretty difficult to tour in Australia to get your equipment there, and like it's expensive. So they had these huge stadium concerts.
But that was when labels gave you money. Honestly, they genuinely gave you money.
Not anymore. No. Not anymore.
It ain't happening.
So they were sort of like very like waning in popularity, because just like the high of like the early 2000s going into like the 2000s were like, not very good for them. Then when does Dino come back? Mechanized?
Well, let me read this really fast, because Wolbers has a certain thing to say about the whole thing about the debacle of Transgression. So he says, "We had some really heavy on Transgression that never made it into the album because Burton didn't want to sing on the fast blast beat songs." So I guess that feels like kind of a cop out to me. Honestly, I don't think. I think the songs just stink. Like, we had over 20 songs, but Burton picked the songs he wanted to write to. I helped to create at least 60% of the vocal hooks and melodies on Archetype. I held his hand during the writing and the demo process. I wrote the verse of Cyber Waste and the chorus melodies in Archetype, etc. Only Bone Scraper was done on the spot in the studio. On Transgression, I wasn't allowed to interfere with Burton's writing process. It was Burton and Toby. I don't know, Toby was the producer or something. Yeah, Toby was the producer. And I heard the first takes and I cringed and I thought that it was a demo stage only and he still had to make up the proper melodies. But they told me it was done and I had to stay out of it. Transgression, I'm not proud of it at all. It is crap. I produced Archetype, but Burton produced Transgression with Toby Wright. That is the truth. So Wolbers here sounds kind of like he's ass mad a lot. But maybe there's probably elements of truth to that, honestly. Like,
I think there's truth, but then again, it's kind of like.
But I don't think he should have been in command of the band. I think it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Like, I think that he's not the leader of Fear Factory, and he's a talented musician. But like, just from my impression, I don't think Fear Factory with the Wolbers at the head is really Fear Factory, honestly.
No, there's something missing. Like it's got to be Dino. Like Dino, because Dino, I think like he wouldn't have accepted like Burton to like just phone it in. You know?
No, exactly. That's the point. Like Dino would have fucking put his foot down and probably would have written some slamming melodies for Burton, but he would have presented them to him in a way that made Burton, lean into them and make them good. Like, because Burton needs somebody to beat his ass into shape.
Yeah, and old Wolbers does not have that personality, from what I can tell.
No.
Yeah.
But even though he's a very creative guy in his own right, but
yeah,
it's something he's like driving something that is not built for him.
He's just a chill guy. It's not. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you have Raymond Herrera's. The last appearance of Raymond was actually on Transgression. But at this point, they kind of just sidelined Raymond and they made him do really boring drum parts, and the drums.
Man, this whole album's a gong show. Holy crap!
Yeah, it's a real mess. And then obviously
that's why I didn't listen to it.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like the main reason why people don't listen to it is because it kind of sounds like crap. But there are, again, I'm not going to denigrate the fans and people who think that there's something to like about Transgression. And obviously, there's something to like about Archetype. It's very obvious that Archetype still contains kind of some of the inertia of earlier stuff. I personally think Transgression is very boring, but I respect people who like the album, and I think it's worth it's part of the whole rich tapestry of Fear Factory.
It's like those weird fans that like Saint Anger, like
But
Super Collider.
There's always good who got the CD when he was like 12, and he was like, "This is the heaviest thing I've ever heard."
Yeah, this always happens that way.
And it like defined an era for him, and it like defined his parents' divorce or something. And he's like, "Yeah, I listened to Transgression by Fear Factory."
Man, I listened to Super Collider back. Yeah. Or Pooper Collider, as people call it.
Well, that's more power to those people, man, honestly. And then obviously, you had the big break, and then they came back in 2010 with Mechanized, which is an actual good album. Which is a great album. And it's also Burton and Dino basically hijacking the vehicle and saying, "You guys," which is like, that's when the ego of Dino really kind of starts to manifest, where he basically said, "Okay, I'm getting back with Burton now. We're best buddies again. You guys, we're going to get a drum machine in." Actually, no, I think Gene Hoglan actually plays on this one, doesn't he? The drum machine's on the next one. No, so Raymond Herrera's gone. Like, Raymond's gone. Gene Hoglan's was it Dino or Burton that chased him away? I don't know. Right? They basically said that Burton and Dino decided that they are now Fear Factory, even though technically Raymond and Wolbers were still in the band, right? Right. And they are. This is where the legal issues begin. But apparently Wolbers said Dino and Burton never said to them that they had reformed Fear Factory. They just made an album on the down low, which I kind of find hard to believe in some ways. But they apparently made an album together. They produced it, and then they call themselves Fear Factory, but it's a different band. Been killer if like they had like Raymond and Christian Old Wolbers do their thing. Like it's just, why did they have to do that? Like, I know why. They're the thing is, maniacs. But apparently Burton and Christian were at odds with each other as well, because they had tried to make an album after. I mean, Burton obviously did not get along particularly well with Christian directing him, or trying to. There's obviously creative differences there, like massively. I don't know the character of these guys like together, but it's obviously that Burton clearly found it very enticing to work with Dino again. and Reese Fulber being back as the producer for this album. You know,
like going back to your old girlfriend.
Yeah, but do you know,
or your old boyfriend? What are you gonna do?
He obviously has the charisma to say to Burton, like, "Yeah, man, remember when we used to like rock out, man?" And I've made these songs. You listen to the demos, and then Burton was obviously like,
"Play big stadiums, always open up for Metallica." Like, yeah.
And Burton was obviously like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go in for this," you know. And I'm sick of Christian, and Christian's pissed me off, so it makes sense.
You can open up for Slipknot this year. Like, yeah. I think they did open up for a bigger band, like at this when they came out with Mechanized. Yeah, they opened up for. I have to look up the actual tour.
Well, Mechanized was well received. It was received as a return to form, right?
Yeah, we even have another like, kind of like Piss Christ, another like fedora tipping song, Christploitation on it. Well, there's no meaning in your death anymore. The words of your life no longer aboard. Your prayers are just lies that fall in deaf ears. Faith has all been lost in our blood and tears. Woo! The later you seek, you'll find nothing there. Your God is just a lie, void of all meaning, man. Yeah. Faith in your bleeding scar. Yeah, it's just like again, like this is what really pisses me off about like the fedora tipping of Burton. Like it's just he had so much meaning in like Resurrection.
Yeah, but here it's that's what like, I'm saying. Like at this point, like obviously the music is good. The light that seeks you, you'll
find nothing there.
The music is good, right? And the melodies are good.
Yeah, music is great.
The thought, he's kind of like coasting on previous like glories, right? In this case, like because I understand what it's like. You know, if you're like one of these guys, you're like a seriously talented musician. You're used to kind of going in a studio and like being able to, you know, you produce on a regular basis, and it can sometimes, you know, it can lead to becoming almost like a parody of yourself. You know, like
even great artists experience that. You know. Reynolds, Picasso.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Reynolds is a good example actually, because it's like incredible talent, but then you're just kind of like even Millet's probably a better example of that, where it's a guy who's
near the later half of his life, it just becomes kitsch. Yeah,
he's just into like a comfortable production line. It was loved in its time, so why do anything different? You know, it's not my turn to be avant-garde. It's not my turn to like think deeply about things. I'm just going to paint, you know, and you know,
even like Pollock, like here near the end of his life, he wanted to break free of, like he could have produced something else. Like he could have breaking free from the drips. Like, but then of course, you know, his affinity for driving drunk over long stretches of New York country road, upper state New York. Christploitation's all I see. Your God that can't save you, void of all meaning. Like, oh man, like even the other lyrics, like Oxidizer ain't that great. Like he's just doing like basic rhyming and
he's phoning it in on a lot of these. But again, there's still like really nice parts on Mechanized, and the production's like just smashes you in the face. Like it's super powerful. Like Power Shifter is an amazing song.
Power Shifter is an amazing song. Yeah. Power Shifter, the lyrics are actually somewhat decent as well. Yeah. Like it's like I know. Yeah, sometimes unfortunately, like especially in metal, suffers from like less than stellar lyrics sometimes when it's all about like.
But then at the same time, I think that when you look for it, there's great poetry that surpasses actual poets in metal. You know, like in stuff like Ugerlock. You know, there's stuff in there which is truly poetic. And then just quickly, because we've got to wrap this up at some point, we go Industrialist, and that's another one where that's the one where they threw Hoagland in the bin, and they decided that Hoagland was also dead weight on Fear Factory, and he had to go because he was, I don't know, they didn't inform him.
He lost a bunch of weight recently.
Oh yeah, he did. It's true. Well, his weight kind of fluctuated throughout his life, right? But
yeah.
When he was with Fear Factory, he was quite fat when he was with Fear Factory, right?
Yeah, and he was quite thin when he was with Death.
Yeah. So. Well, such is life in the sugar cookie world, I suppose. But I mean, Industrialist, I've never listened to it. I've genuinely never listened to it, so I can't really comment on it.
They say it's decent. I mean, I listened to a few songs, but like, it's just like
that's good to know.
The Industrialist. Oh yeah. New Messiah is good. Again, it's typical Fedora Richard Dawkins like. Crap, like, you know, virus of faith.
Yeah.
God eater. Religion is flawed because man is flawed. Like it's that's an instrumental. It's actually a decent instrumental. Like it's I mean, this is where I don't know, the lyrics sort of take a nosedive for me.
Yeah.
It's just, maybe just my own biases.
Well, I don't think that they're really thinking about it in terms of exploring things. They're more thinking about it in terms of, well, we're making a new Fear Factory album now, and it's been that way, I guess, since. I
haven't listened to the previous three, like since the Industrialist. I haven't listened to them a whole bunch. Like these albums, I mean, I listen to the old stuff, but not like.
Yeah. Well,
maybe I should listen to them.
Apart from Mechanized, maybe I don't think that they're really worth returning to. It's just kind of like it's made for the fans in some ways, whereas like the fans kind of expect new music from you.
They're in like Slayer albums.
Yeah, exactly. And there's only so many times you can make like Seasons in Hell or God Hates Us All. Seasons in the Abyss. Sorry,
Seasons in Hell. Yeah. There's only so many times you can mean Rained in Blood. Yeah.
Well, that's what they've been kind of doing. I mean, like, and it is basically just slapping modern production and some fancy kind of nice auto tune and cool harmonies on stuff. And then you had Genexis. And there was a cool song on Genexis called, I heard Expiration Date. It was kind of a very like, almost like a cheesy, like synth wave kind of ballad song at the end.
Yeah.
Quite cheesy, but again, the melodies are kind of good and they get stuck in your head.
What's the one with Soul Hacker on it?
That's number 4 on Genexis, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good song.
And again, it's like, it's quite short songs, and then you've got a long song at the end, which has kind of an ambient thing going on.
Yeah. So I haven't listened. Then Aggression of Continuum.
And that was the last one that has Burton before he left the band. So this does have Burton's vocals on it.
So apparently, this song, Aggression Continuum, this album. So they had these songs that some of them they made back in like 2017.
Yeah.
Or like 2015 when they were making Genexis. That word it's kind of weird. It reminds me of Nexium. Nexium.
It reminds me of Terminator for some reason. Like it sounds like something from Terminator, but that's the point.
Yeah, so apparently Burton recorded all of his vocals as like demos or whatever, but then he left the band.
Yeah.
And then Dino's like, oh, Burton's the type of guy where it's like, when things get tough, it's like all the stuff we've been through.
He runs away.
Yeah. So then apparently they just kept Burton's vocals and now they have some like jabroni doing like a musician thing. I don't know what they got.
No.
Let me see who they have actually. I wonder who they have. They have.
Well, but I did read that Dino was considering a lady, but then he decided.
That's right.
He decided against it.
They don't have. He was considering a lady.
It wouldn't have sounded like Fear Factory without. If it was a lady, it would not have sounded anyway like even like a semblance of Fear Factory. But again, my opinion on these things is you should always pack it in when you're ahead, and I think it's time for Fear Factory to die and to stop trying to make albums. Frankly, to sum up things, it's like obviously all the stuff that I say is like critical of like Burton and stuff. I still bow in tremendous like in reverence to the guy, like, and to those 4 guys at that time. I think there's genuine and creative magic was happening.
You could feel like they were a team too.
Yeah.
That they created something special and original.
Yeah.
And that like influenced metal for literally like decades to come.
Yeah, and it's a force that even for their own personality flaws and their own kind of like things were transcended by this idea that they're working towards a kind of just to influence, to be a cultural force and to say something that was in a Heideggerian way, maybe you want to say it was signifying an age and it was signifying a cultural moment.
Yeah, very much so.
And obviously went on to influence many things, should be recognized as such. And the fact that we're still talking about it in such depth now shows that they that's what I look for, man. Like there are albums that I can listen to and come back to, and a lot of Agalok stuff does this for me, as well as ISIS, where you can listen to it 5 years from now and you have a totally new experience of it. You'll remember the first time you experienced it, but also you'll completely live through that. That your new self will completely take new meaning upon that on that music.
Because
it's living music.
You've lived through a different period in your life, and now it speaks to you in a different way.
But the music is also still alive and thriving. Because it references a cultural continuum. It's not just part of a. We're going to make something and just make something heavy or whatever, or make something evil sounding. We got to wrap up the Fear Factory discussion.
It's been 5 hours. So
honestly,
Go and listen to the album after.
Yeah, actually do go and listen to the album. Like, it's probably maybe listen to the album before you listen to this and after as well.
Yeah.
But again, man, I'm tremendously thankful to talk to you about these kind of things, and
man.
to talk to everybody on your many new subscribers on your channel about these kind of things.
Thank you. Yeah. And it's been it's been a long, strange journey, man.
Maybe we're theory selling out here, and
I mean, 5 hours, holy crap, on one album.
Well,
see, take that, Anthony Fantano. Could you do that? No, you can't.
Yeah. I hope that if you get anything from this long beardy discussion or whatever, it's that there is a lot more to this music than just kind of like chuds banging their heads and kind of
being skeptical of technology
and saying technology bad. There's a lot more nuance to this kind of music, and
it's a lot better than Black Mirror. Yeah.
And if you view this kind of music in a mytho-poetic way, which I kind of tend to do, it can help you navigate this world and help you actually find, dare I say, some meaning in this world. Anyway, man, thanks so much for talking.
Stop on record.
Thanks so much for talking to me about this, man. And I'll see you around, and I'll see you guys, see everyone else later.
God bless and
farewell. Bye-bye.